Good morning, everybody. It is Friday. It's 10:30. This is CEO Chat. My name is Al Cini.
Joe Osamendi.
And Joseph Osamendi. We have today Captain Joseph Sacchetti.
Oh, good.
And
Nice
listen,
to meet
he is an author, and we get to interview a lot of authors, and it's always a pleasure. And there are plenty of really good books out there, but every now and then, I'm going to hold this up, Guts, Smarts, and Love is a great book. I mean, I really highly recommend this book. I've had the pleasure of reading much of it. And we're here to talk to Joe about this. And I think, Joe, what I want to do is break down the title. Because what you're saying is that the secret of success, from your point of view, is Guts, Smarts, and Love. Talk about what Guts means to you.
Well, Guts, Smarts, and Love are three properties that any leader, anybody that wants to lead a high-performance life would love to have. And we'd love to have them near us. And we can only fit so many words on the title of a book, so we had to pick three good ones.
You picked three great ones.
So we start with Guts. I mean, also, if you look at the kind of person that we're profiling in the book, U.S. Army Rangers, they embody a lot of things, but if you broke it down, they really embody guts and smarts and love. Like you're saying, there's some different things. Guts is pure courage and bravery, and the ability to do things that most people would choose not to do.
Well, you know, and while we're on the subject of talking about that, because I mean, a lot of people who watch the program are CEOs, owners of businesses, business leaders at various levels inside sometimes large corporations. They're not dodging bullets, they're not jumping out of airplanes, but guts is important nonetheless. I mean, on a day-to-day basis, in order to be an effective leader, you need to have the courage to stand by the truth as you understand it. Just talk about that. I mean, just everyday courage.
It does take a lot of courage and fortitude to do what's necessary to run a company. Because in reality, running a company is a lot like running a military unit. Save the fire and the bullets and the hunger. There are a lot of tough things that have to be done. You've got to compete, and you have to have the internal fortitude to do it. One of the nice things about the book is that all of the lessons that we gleaned from U.S. Army Rangers were geared to business. And so for young leaders. Now, I like to think that book is perfect for 20 to 40-year-olds, but we are finding now that CEOs also really like that message.
Well, and they should, because I mean, there's a great lesson for everybody of any age, whether you're thinking about becoming a leader or you are a leader and you'd like to do a better job of it. What I really like about the book, Joe, is that you've written it in such an approachable way. It's separate stories that could be read separately. You don't have to read it in order. I mean, especially these days, people have a kind of a social media attention deficit disorder problem. It's the kind of book that you can take in chunks, and every story is a lesson.
That's right. If someone decides that they want a little primer or they want to teach something about rebuilding an organization, you can flip to the chapter that says rebuilding what has crumbled. And rather than me, the storyteller, approach it didactically and say, you should do this, I just bring a story. We have Colonel Dom Carasello, who was tasked to turn around Kirkuk, a city of 1.5 million, and he had 900 troops to do it with.
Seriously.
And you can approach that, as any CEO realizes, through fear or through development. And rather than curfews and checkpoints, he chose developing fish farms and chicken hatcheries.
Right. You know, I think that's such a good point, because in a lot of ways it defines what differentiates the American military, let's say, from other military history stories. It's not about conquering. It's not about overwhelming. It's about inspiring and about changing minds and changing hearts, which I think is wonderful. And that's why there's so many great examples of exactly that in this book. I'm going to say Guts, Smarts, and Love about 1,000 times. You got to go get this book. It's available on Amazon. I want to make sure everybody knows where to go get it.
It sure is. The Amazon Kindle version came out appropriately on Veterans Day in November. And as you mentioned before, thanks for mentioning it, it hit the Amazon Kindle bestseller list.
Bestseller list.
Within the first week.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how well the book was received, but I don't have to know.
So far, so good, Joe.
They're downloading it like crazy.
And it will be out in paperback next month.
This is,
in the
we're
beginning
looking
of
at
March.
the paperback
And
here.
you've got the pre-release copy right there.
Beautiful. This is just wonderful. I mean, it's a substantial book, but it's an approachable book. You don't have to read all of it, but you will want to. And what I like about it is it's stories that teach these lessons. It's not exactly what you said. It's not, you've got to do this. There's nothing preachy about it. It's stories of inspiration and change, transformation that people can draw a lot from just by reading what these people have done.
You're right, and one of the things I thought was most important, especially with the target audience of people that want to get better and tend to be younger folks climbing the ladder. I think our audience today doesn't want to be told what to do, and presenting a story is always much better to do it.
Oh,
Yeah, I was going to ask you, that style is so conducive to this kind of training and stuff like that, and also the message you're going to do it. Stories are great for telling that kind of message.
It does. It brings the point home.
Right.
People immediately get imagery. I think when you look at that the book and you read a story of Sergeant Doug Whitmire, they were given a task, something very big, and within moments in that book, you feel yourself in a dark forest, being dropped by a helicopter, and having rations for 20 days, which turns out to be a 30-day. Mission.
So how do you make that work? And how do you get everybody to cooperate with you in making that work? Because that's a big part of it. Okay, smarts. You need a degree?
You don't need a degree. You need to be smart. You need skills. And I think for the CEO message is that we have to have at least a familiarity with every task that we're taking purview over. You don't have to be an expert in everything your company does. That's not realistic. But an idea of how to do what the folks in the line are doing, and of course, having a strategy. So you have to have some metrics and some analytics. We can't build a company just from guts alone.
Right.
You gotta have a plan.
You got to have some kind of a plan. There's a Winston Churchill quote I love. Strategy is a wonderful thing, but every now and then you've got to look at the results. And, so you really do have to measure exactly what you're getting out of it. You have to be able to call your shot. 8 ball in the corner pocket.
That's
and
right.
This is how I'm going to do it. That's the plan and how I'm going to execute on that. I think that's key. I'm going to hold this book up again. Didn't mean to, Joe. Sorry. Guts, Smarts, and Love, which is a great book.
I'm feeling
Sorry,
a lot of
Joe.
that.
Yeah, I know. You just got a chance to read the back of it. Even the back is interesting.
I was going to say, when I think of smarts, I always think of common sense too, and people don't use enough of it.
Well, the military is a great training ground for common sense, because you're faced with a lot of decisions you have to make quickly. And I think in life, when people develop and they don't have a lot of common sense, it's probably because they didn't have to make quick decisions. A lot of things may have been done for them. And so we don't have a lot of these experiences. Well, in the military, very soon, like when you get off the bus on their first day, you got to make the decision to go left or right very quickly.
Actually, you got a great story about getting off the bus on
That's
your
right.
first day. Maybe you can tell everybody.
Well, folks that are they're getting off the bus, they're indoctrinated and very quickly realize I've got to ditch all my preconceived notions of what I thought was successful before, and I've got to meld into becoming a team. And the drill sergeants and so forth, they're going to make sure it happens. And that's the beauty of the military, which is really a great foundation.
It is, when you hit the beach, it's going to be up to you. It's not going to be up to some general. You're going to have to know what to do. And you can't do it the way you think somebody else would approve or what you think somebody else would do. You've got to do it the way you know is the right thing to do. That's kind of the essence of Common Sense Show, and I think that's why I'm glad you brought that up. But the tough one, because you don't normally associate this with military operations or business, love. Guts, Smarts, and Love. What does love mean to you?
I'll tell you the story that when I sent the manuscript into our great publishers, Dudley Court Press, they said, here's our process. The book goes through a committee, and they take a look and see if they like the book and so forth. This is great, because my target audience are young leaders, 20 to 40. How many of those will I have? She said, none. Our committee is 5 middle-aged ladies. And I thought, okay, I'm done here. This is my author's career is going to come to an abrupt end. What they told me was that on the Monday morning, they asked me, did you know the word love appears in your manuscript 74 times? And reading through, you get this essence of brotherhood. And
Really?
love in the context of the military is about taking care of people and caring about them and bringing them home.
Right.
I'll tell you that I'm very reluctant to pass along a lot of advice to young leaders. But one thing that I do, an exception I make, is to tell them, bring your troops home in one piece. You take
Really?
40 men over, bring 40 men back. Now,
What condition they're in, you may not be able to control, but you want to worry about every one of them all the way through that process.
That's right. That's the love of bringing them home. You may remember that the traditional military required officers to write letters to the mother,
Sure.
next of kin, and for troops that have passed away. And I made a deal with myself, as much as I could be in charge of it. I was not going to write one of those letters. Rather, I was going to bring home all my
You're going to bring
guys home
everybody
alive.
home, and that was it. And
Yeah.
whatever, you don't always get the privilege of achieving that goal, but because you want to achieve that goal, you've got people who will do anything for you, and which means whatever it is you're tasked to do is going to get done more efficiently, more effectively, and more completely, because what you love becomes what they love.
That's right. And
Which is each other and what we're doing.
you bring up a good point, that not only is it the leader who has love for his subordinates, but it's really a sideways thing. All of your folks that are peers, they have that brotherhood and courage. And of course, Shakespeare talked about it 500 years ago. There's no bond greater than those who shed blood in battle. The folks, when you're faced with the toughest situation that you can imagine, and life and death is on the line, you're doing it for the buddy in your foxhole.
Right.
You're at that moment. You're not acting out of any sense of philosophy or even country. It's down to Jim on this side and Pete on this side.
Really.
And you're gonna do what you can to keep them alive.
Yeah, that matters. And let's bring that home for people who are watching the program, because not everybody's an Army Ranger. And by the way, we're interviewing a guest who is in much better shape than either of us. I don't know if you've noticed that. But which isn't hard. That's a pretty low bar. I do want to make that point. But that whole idea of loving what you do and loving the people that are helping you do it, how does that apply to business?
Well, I think all you have to do is have the preface that we understand there won't be bullets flying in the boardroom. But shy of that, everything else is a lesson that carries over. Bridging the gap between people that think differently. There's a chapter in that, and that makes sense in the boardroom. One of our characters retired from the Army. He got a job at a technology company and walked into the room first day, found that he was at least 20 years older than everyone else in the room. He walked in with his cup of coffee. They all had Red Bull. Everything about it was a new generation. He had his a little device of some sort. They had MacBooks. And so you realize that there's bridging the gap makes good sense. And really, everything else. We have another character in the book, Sergeant Major Watts, who said, "Just ask me." That was his tagline. If you don't know something, just ask me. Because I've spent my lifetime, he said, he had spent his lifetime learning all of the individual tasks that could be, that you would have in a company. And he just wanted people to ask him if they needed help.
Yeah, it's great. We need to take a break. This is, and I can tell you from knowing both fields, this is the best book I've ever read on the subject of servant leadership without ever mentioning the phrase servant leadership. I mean, that whole idea that you can serve a mission and serve the people that are helping you support that mission, and how you can use that to become more effective as a leader, I think that's all in this book. And when we come back, we'll talk more with Joe Sacchetti, Captain Joe Sacchetti, about this book and how it applies in the business world. So we'll be right back after these messages.
Boardwalks built for fun. Legendary rock and roll clubs.
This is how we do it. Hip hip hop.
casinos by the ocean. Now that's New Jersey. 130 miles of beautiful beaches, solid rock, and everything in between.
Look in the window.
Now that's New Jersey. Plan your New Jersey trip at visitnj.org. Waves of fun. Nights of excitement. And a trail of memories. Now that's New Jersey.
Welcome back to CEO Chat. Joe, when was the last time we had this much fun on CEO Chat?
Probably a long time ago.
Think back, buddy.
Yeah, that's fun. Great book, by the way.
And it's because it's a great subject and as embodied in this great book, Guts, Smarts, and Love, by Captain Joe Sacchetti, who's joining us here today as a guest. And I know you wear a couple of hats. I mean, not only are you an accomplished author, and this is a great read and we highly recommend it, but you also work for a company. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Sure, and I think it's great because the lessons from Army Rangers, they apply over to business. And I happen to work in a field that's relevant, technology. Technology is relevant today, and it has some of the best of the line folks, like as in the military has great line folks, and have some great leaders. And so a lot of the principles that the book embodies, I see on a day-to-day basis.
You're seeing on a day-to-day basis.
I really do, yeah. My company's called Zadara Cloud Services, and it's cloud hosting. So if you're familiar with Amazon and Google and so forth, you'd be familiar with what our company does. The same, but on a smaller, customizable level. And work with some great people. In fact, a lot of the stories that we have are folks that are doing great things. Now, our CEO, apropos of CEO Chat, Nelson Nahum, has a great mantra, which is no deal is too small for me to get involved and roll my sleeves up in.
Really?
And that's a good message for the
Certainly.
folks.
That could be read out of your book.
It sure is.
I mean, that means that everybody's work is important. It doesn't matter how big the deal is. What matters is the quality of the work we do.
And that he respects everything that everyone is doing, even from the initial week of a salesperson who has a teeny little opportunity. He's willing to do that.
He wants to be in on that, which is great, I think. And what do you do for Zadara?
I run the channel. I'm the channel chief, which is to say I find partners who also sell technology, and we enable them to sell Zadara.
Good. And a little later on, you tell everybody how to reach you and whether they want to consider Zadara Cloud Services or want to know more about the book. I do want to point out that you know what you're talking about because you are an Army veteran. You were a Rangers member, which is no easy, from what I understand, that's a difficult thing to qualify for. At least I've heard that.
Ranger School is the premier leadership school in the Army. It is interesting that they call it a leadership school. Everybody knows it's their survival school, but they call it a leadership school. And it's 61 days of essentially 2 hours of sleep at night and 1 meal a day. And it's also a great diet plan.
I'll bet. And you managed to keep your figure since then. I'm proud of you.
Well, listen, when you leave Ranger School and you get your Ranger tab, it's this little tab. Actually, I've got one right here. You have it on your shoulder. That's really the first day
Really?
of the rest of your life of being a Ranger.
Oh, no kidding. You're a Ranger forever.
Because it's not enough that you passed that leadership school. It's now that you're going to live a life of passing along that same leadership.
Okay, you're talking to a guy who throws his back out trying to get out of his car. So what I want you to do is tell us what that first day was like when you jumped out of a perfectly good airplane.
Okay, well, very good. Airborne Ranger is a term that people know. You hear it in songs. To be a Ranger, you're doing all kinds of great stuff, and one of the prerequisites is you have to be airborne qualified, which means you jump out of airplanes. And you do that in a 3-week school where you learn everything you can about the logistics of jumping, then you practice it for the second week, and then on the third week you actually make 5 jumps. Now, I will say this. If you ask me about the first jump, I'll tell you a good story. that I was ready to go. They have you so jazzed up in airborne school that you would jump out of that plane without a parachute.
Oh, seriously?
It's the second jump that's the problem.
Really?
Because then reality sets
Yeah,
in
you
the
have
next
to
day.
think about it.
What am I doing?
It sets in what you just did,
Yeah.
and then fear starts to creep in. So, but you're with a lot of other people. I mean,
Sure.
I was jumper number 37, and there's 36 guys behind me, and there's another 110 behind me,
Oh, wow.
in front and behind, and you're just going with the flow. And you realize, hey, if they're doing it, and people have been doing it for years, I'm going to make out okay.
Wow.
And then you have your first night jump. That's usually jump number 4. So it's bad enough that you have to do this in the day.
In the dark.
Now they want to turn the lights out, and a lot of airborne folks. The airborne rangers are the greatest folks because they totally make fun of themselves and realize that these tough things they take it in stride. That about 10 of my jumps were night jumps because I had my eyes closed.
Wow. And nobody knew. But you did.
Why did you decide to become a ranger?
Well, I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to serve in the Army, and then once I was in, I just there's this drive you have to let me find out what the hardest and best thing you can possibly do, and see if I can achieve that. I mean, there's a lot of guys that have fear of heights and water, and so they make themselves go to airborne school and
To make
ranger
that
school.
happen.
You just want to see that you can do, and I wanted to make the best contribution, and I also wanted to serve in a unit that was, if I could make it, was the best of the best.
And the best of the best, which is a reach goal for so many people, and very few people actually make it to that goal. And you're to be congratulated. And I don't know if we can say this enough. Thank you for your service to our country, because you and others like you make sometimes. And I do want to kind of get back to the book. And I know you served 2 tours in Iraq. And we can joke all we want about what it feels like to jump out of an airplane, but you served next to some people who, for one reason or another, didn't make it back. And a lot of their stories are in this book, and there's a lot to be learned from that.
That's
Maybe
true.
you can spend a minute or two talking about some of those people.
It was a very cathartic experience interviewing families that had loved ones that had served and not come back. And that is a part of war, and that is a living example of freedom is not free. We have folks in this country, they're amazing, the level of soldier that we have today that go and serve. And they are protecting our freedom throughout the world. But we have, Sergeant Jimmy Patton is one that you'll find in the first couple of chapters, who embodies this young ranger. He became a sergeant at a young age. At 22, he was a sergeant, and his troops were 21.
Wow,
And so that's a really great example of peer leadership that you don't often see in other places, but you see it in the Army. And he exposed himself to gunfire in one particular mission where they were ambushed and stuck behind a boulder. They were taking heavy fire, and the only way out of this in the mountains where they had chased bad guys was to get the Air Force radio guy to call in an airstrike.
Really?
But he was stuck behind his own boulder and couldn't even raise his head because of machine gun fire. So Sergeant Jimmy Patton decides he's got to come out of around the boulder and take all the fire to himself.
Really?
And as the enemy concentrates fire on this lunatic who has come out in front of a boulder, the JTAC was able to peek his head up, call the airstrike in, and just like in the movies, the airplanes come in and took out the side of the mountain and got them all alive.
Wow, that's impressive. And I guess another question I want to ask you is, you're a veteran and you served with a lot of veterans. There are people out there who own companies, run companies. What do they get if they hire a veteran?
The best thing you could possibly do today is to hire a veteran, because you're going to get someone who's loyal and driven and who has the foundation of learning his skills to the max, 100%.
Wow.
And the X factor, works as a team.
Wow.
Because we got a lot of lone wolves out there, and there's nothing wrong with trying to be the best you can be, but we do find sometimes that folks care about themselves more than others. You hire a veteran, you're going to get a team player.
Yeah, that's impressive.
And a lot of those skills translate very easily into the business field.
I think so. I mean, you have the actual skill and logistics that transfer over, and then you've got all of the teamwork and leadership that does.
Definitely.
Especially at the higher levels.
Right.
Yeah.
We see a lot of folks on executive boards now that are seeking out military folks.
Wow, and they should be. And I think that's another message. And there are also an awful lot of people I know that you served with who've read their stories in your book.
Oh my gosh.
What kind of response have you gotten from that?
It's been overwhelming. There's 82 chapters in there, which, by the way, for anyone who's military knows the significance, the 82nd Airborne, just for fun.
That's interesting.
But they love reading the stories. Here's what's interesting. You have soldiers that just wanted to make a difference. And they didn't think anyone would ever pay attention, anyone would ever know or recognize. Now we find 30 years later that those experiences that were impactful to them are also impactful to all the readers at large.
Wow.
And they can't believe that it made such a difference.
I don't know, I don't think anybody who is inspiring actually feels inspiring while they're doing what they're doing. I think you don't learn that you're inspiring until you hear from somebody else how inspired they were by what you did. What I love about your work here is that you shine a light on experiences people have had that they probably don't talk much about themselves, but every one of those experiences is a lesson for somebody. And I think there's so much value in this book. I'm so glad you wrote it. I'm so glad it's now out and available. And this is not a vanity press effort. This is published. This is a Polish work by a real publishing house.
It sure is.
So it's been edited and read over, and it's a very high quality read. Very impressive, very wonderful. You got to go out and get this book, really, whether you get it on Kindle or get it to hold it. It's just a terrific work.
Thank you. And as we're sitting here today, by the way, Joe and Al, we're 30 years past the date when we first crossed over into Iraq during Desert Storm.
Really?
Almost to the day.
Really? That's hard to believe.
And the National Infantry Association they do This Day in History, and just 2 days ago, this day in history, elements of the Red Falcon Scouts of the 82nd crossed over to do recon operations into Iraq. And that was my unit, our 30 men that were operating under the cover of darkness for about 32 days straight. We slept in the day and we went out at night to recon.
It's really hard to believe that was 30 years ago. I know it's a fresh experience for you still. That's something you'll never forget. And I know the people you served with certainly won't forget it. I want to say in the business world too, because we're getting ready to wrap up. And I've been in the business world. I've never done what you've done, which is amazing. You'll always hear somebody at work say, "I've had a terrible day." Do they really know what a terrible day is?
I resigned myself when I came home to never complain about a lumpy bed or the air conditioning being up too high. And that's just a function of people that unfortunately haven't gone out there and had tough situations. But I'm thankful for everything we do. Everything we have. We're very blessed in this company, the country.
Yeah, we are, and we're blessed to have people like you upholding the principles that make us a great country. And I think that's so. Thank you for your service. Thanks to everyone that you mentioned in this book for their service. Such a wonderful, a terrific read. You definitely want to get it at that part of our program where you tell everybody how to get a hold of you. So there's your camera. Go ahead and.
Okay, well, great. I'm always loving the chance to talk and to share the message. You can reach me at, of course, at the company at jsacchetti@zadara.com. And for any information on the book, Got Smarts and Love, you can hit my YouTube channel, which is Army Ranger at MIT. And I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, as Army Ranger at MIT.
It's terrific. And we'll have to get you back on CEO Chat on a future episode for an update. All the best. And I'm wishing you the best, but I'm actually wishing all your future readers the best. When I tell them this is a terrific work, you really need to go out and get it. And congratulations on a wonderful job writing a terrific book. Captain Joe Sacchetti, thank you for your service once again, and thanks for being with us today on CEO Chat.
Al and Joe, thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. Be safe out there. Use common sense. And
we'll be back next week with another great guest on CEO Chat. Thank you all for joining us today.